Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question, and that is to go a little bit more in depth on some of the unrecognized cues. What were some of perhaps the red flags, things you could have noticed in the relationship that you got used to that people might consider covert, meaning undetectable. You can't put a finger on it. All you know, there feels to be some sort of a one-way street. Something you should have had, you don't have. Something that should have been exchanged isn't exchanged. It's oftentimes a manipulation of omission, meaning it's not what they say, it's what they don't say. It's not what they do, it's what they don't do. So there becomes this sort of like an act of treason, if you will, where there's a feeling that it's then going against a loyalty or sort of a law, a written law of relationships. In other words, what you might feel inherently to be brought to the table that you think should be an automatic or a given. And instead, with the covert narcissist, because they remain aloof, because they're kind of like a ventriloquist, there's other things that are coming out, oftentimes manipulation, messages on the subconscious that you really can't engage with or discuss because it's so deep. It's so unbeknownst to regular conversation. It's been so normalized that you can't quite put a finger on it. You just have this sense of knowing, a funny feeling. Oftentimes tips the table in terms of fear, insecurity, embarrassment, shame, humiliation. These sort of feelings like I've been caught with my pants down feeling. And it's very uncomfortable. So there's sort of this, how do you look at and understand the covert narcissist? And how do they sort of sabotage? It's through withholding and ignoring. So certain pleas, certain things that you might express, they do not reciprocate. Certain norms, certain expectations that you shouldn't have to request or ask for, you have to start asking for. But the degree of shame, embarrassment, and humiliation, even in the asking, sometimes is painful and suffering enough. So a person who is suffering just continues to chronically, it's like a constant seething or burning or rumbling underneath the surface. It's like a low-grade chronic anxiety that will gradually wear you down, sort of like that little drip in the faucet that isn't much, but when it keeps going, you're like, this has to be fixed, this has to be tightened up, something has to be resolved. And in terms of the covert, so in other words, looking for them to take their lead, take their reaction, their percussive movement. Oftentimes there's even this, I feel that the covert narcissist, because of their aloofness and disdain, sort of their quiet disdain, passive aggressive behavior, which means they don't address it directly. It comes out in different areas, different, maybe on the job, in the garage, in the basement, with the kids, with the grandparents, or just out of nowhere. This person, you might feel that all of a sudden they're acting out of character, or it's just they're so withdrawn. And it can be so, then see, it puts people then at a downward, because they're then having to really crawl. In other words, there's a regression. I feel that you know, a collapsing of the individual. When someone is being subjected to covert narcissism. It's very painful because it's so undetectable, but the narcissist is sort of using this as a defense mechanism tactic. In other words, to make sure everything is going okay for him. It's basically less work. Hey, if I just don't hear it, the big crash in the kitchen, I don't have to deal with it because I didn't hear it. But even though, things are getting allowed in there, they don't want to attest, they don't validate, they don't bring it out in the open. It's always, underneath the rug, and it's not even swept under the rug. All of a sudden there just gets to be a big mound and you trip over it going, man, something is really stuck here. And you hit that sort of bottom out, but usually you end up with a covert narcissist because of their withholding. What ends up happening is everyone else has to go and do the work, do the guessing, do the leading, do the whatever, do the job, do the event, do the holiday, do the asking. It's really sort of put on the shoulder of other people, and you don't realize it. And it really does then feel like a burden, that you're carrying a burden, but it feels burdensome because you're not getting or feeling that your needs are met from it. They're stealthy. I'll be with you in 1 minute. Let's talk about that tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes. Or they end up doing something, exiting stage left, right, and you're tilted right, left, and you don't feel center. And you can feel then this out of balance for some period of time. Your life just feels chaotic or in a crisis mode way too much. And you're feeling that like you're carrying more, you're doing more, but you're sinking lower at the same time. In other words, you're doing what you have been doing, but it's really not paying any dividends. The ground that you feel that you're trying to defend is getting smaller and smaller. You've got a 4-ounce piece of filet on your plate, and you're trying to stand on a tippy toe, and you're going, I don't think this works. And you might be then at this very awkward place that they then sort of position people into, like a game, like a win or lose, in other words, I didn't know that the old sort of playing dumb is sort of the covert, meaning they were sort of just not, if you can explain that in a generalized term. They don't acknowledge, they don't validate, they don't listen, they don't really, it's sort of the non-confrontational. I've done my job. I'm doing me, I'm doing my life. And that's all that's required. And then for everyone else, they feel that they're then sort of shut out, left in the cold, with their voice unheard or their heart broken and non-mended. It's sort of feeling like my heart is on a fence. It's stuck, and it's on your fence, Mr. or Mrs. whomever, covert narcissist. And I kind of need to have it with you so I can get my heart off your fence, and you can see it. Oh, I'm sorry, you got stuck on my this. Oh wow, I'll be careful next time. There's none of that conversation, sort of that a resolution or bringing to closure, sort of the healing, the making of amends. There is a malignancy to this, meaning they foster these sort of what you might consider covert fantasies. Or what are they? This isn't my job. I don't have to do this. I don't have to include you. So even natural protocols is this, I'm not including you. But it can be as much as looking, waving, inviting, acknowledging, eye contact, the old pat on the back, whatever it is. There seems to be this just sort of leaving out, and it does not make social psychological sense. In other words, A plus B does not equal C. In other words, what you've done doesn't warrant the treatment. So it creates this cognitive dissonance, confusion. I'll work harder to figure this out. Maybe if I wave my arms around, jump up and down, yell and scream, but they don't flinch, they don't flail, they don't respond in like degree. It's their manipulation where they basically opt out. They just say, not me, and it's the sort of treating others with disdain, meaning you're out of line for asking. So they sort of put it, give you what they would call pushback, meaning this just denying it and rejecting from the get-go. It doesn't even get airtime. They have some sort of prominence in their own mind, which is, a fantasy, which means I don't have to, a grandiosity, which then, because they're, just like an overt narcissist, where I don't have to do that, that's beneath me, can you do that for me? They don't want to do the work, what they would consider menial, even though they have to do it. Sir, you have to turn the key to your own car. Sir, you have to sign here with your own signature. No, I can't make your signature here for you. Those people who, make it chop, 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 hurry, hurry. I've got a business to go to in 30 seconds. And they expect, just because they pronounce that you're going to jump and flail and meet their, even though what they're asking for takes 10 minutes. They're expecting you to put it into 30 seconds. And this is they really expect this. They really expect you to return this item and give me, full this and full, just that sort of entitlement. So the covert narcissist sort of has that, but on the quiet, on the down low, on the smooth, on the unskilled, on the unacknowledged, just sort of undetectable, meaning they don't want to, they don't want to sort of vocalize it, but they will just sort of do it. In other words, when you meet them, you can't get too close. You feel like they're like Vladimir Putin, sit on this big table 50 feet away, would you? Just to sort of have their declare of their superiority. And you can't change the kingdom once you're in it. Otherwise, bad things can happen. So-and-so didn't show up for work today, and neither did their family. And their yacht has disappeared. And someone's going like this, and, they're polishing their nails, or it's this, you find out of after 10 years of marriage, they're just handing you a paper on the table. Here's a presentation for a divorce, and they've just lined up all sorts of things with their accounts, their friends, and then you have to go through, personal espionage. All of a sudden you're like, what? And you're having to feel like you have to spy out some other details to figure out, how did I all of a sudden become a guilty party? It's in something. It's this automatic assignment, maybe the Bible calls it original sin. I don't know what it is, but it's sort of built into their fabric. Where does the opposite from liberating, supportive, nurturing, something that you might just, it's a basic, Abraham Maslow, the basic human needs to be satisfied. And then once those are satisfied, then the human being can evolve and become the self-actualized person. In other words, you're feeling like you're just always on a cliffhanger. You're always on the climb with them, but you're not, instead of, you're going like this, but you're not getting any higher up in your life. Your life isn't sort of going along with the merits. There's something emotionally discalculated, and these things just show up, and you're like, what? And then you're just sort of made out, written into the plan, the plot. It's almost like a TV syndicate show where all of a sudden you aren't able. There's this feeling of you've got a heavy weight that's been put on you like a lead pillow, and this is supposed to be beneficial for you, and this is causing you more stress and strain. Other people don't appear to be doing this or having all these heavy emotions, and so you feel that you're then cloistered off and isolated, can't communicate. This is the covert narcissist. This is where they're sort of the devil in disguise. If it's a malignant narcissist, someone who basically just feels that they are, from whatever it is, they feel singled out and special. And they have this sort of pathological I am specialness. Well, I have news for you. You are special. You are special too. You deserve special feelings and to live and have relationships that aren't wrought with pain and really bringing in future fears. So there's this feeling of future fears that are sort of brought in versus future joys. The burden, you feel that you're having to do more. This becomes then codependence, meaning your needs are met by taking care of other people's needs, meaning your needs don't matter as long as you can fill your cup, your eyes, your day with taking care of their needs. Instead of, getting an outfit for you, you're getting an outfit for them. Instead of signing up a class for you, you're trying to figure out how you can be better fit for them because, your life becomes inextricably connected with them. In other words, you don't get your own full big picture the way that they do. You get a small, they're trying to sort of rope you in and lasso you in without you knowing it. You're going, and then next thing you know, they're pulling the cord and you knew it. And then there's this feeling usually of like, I knew it all the time. But you can't undo this feeling. It's a perception. It's a way of relating and a way of blending in and acknowledging your, basically what Freud might call the super ego, basically your higher conscious. That's which is a blend of your lessons learned, your role models, sort of what keeps you in check, meaning I have a sense of, and a way of doing things because I know this is what's required. I don't drive 65 in a 30 because that's illegal. I don't sleep on the sidewalk because that's illegal too. There's certain things that you don't do that cause trouble or are out of the norm. But what the covert narcissist tries to sort of, their love bomb is very different. They'll sort of, I think it becomes this very sort of transactional way of relating, meaning there's something that they are going to want from the relationship, but they're going to give you something first, meaning, but they expect you to do X, Y, Z, something more in return. In other words, it's sort of like you're getting roped into an employment deal. You're like, why am I suddenly then obligated and feel smaller, constricted, and restricted because they're encroaching? But yet you can't put a finger on it, you just know. It's because their body is communicating the message. Your subconscious knows, when it's being handed some bag of lies or something that isn't going to allow you to be secure, mobile. They're after something about you in the long run. In other words, they're trying to point out, some inherent flaw. So with the covert narcissist, I feel that their love bombing is saying, I'm this wonderful woman or this wonderful man, and then everything, if you were to drop everything, it's okay, kid, you and me against the world. I am all that. and I am of means, like they're kind of like that maiden, they can rudder the waters for you at certain times. But then, it's kind of like, because I've done this, then you're obligated for all these other things. But it's a natural exchange in human interactions and relationships, to be able to have a give and take, but not one that obligates you in a way that requires your ignorance, that requires your silence, that requires your shame in order to continue in the relationship. In other words, you've had to swallow some hurts that didn't get out, and then if you don't acknowledge and validate, those will grow. They will go somewhere energetically. So you have to be like an emotional technician, basically. If you're not having to be like a super sleuth, meaning, that you're feeling that they're doing something and you're trying to smoke it out. You're like, they're hiding something, they're doing something, and you just have this feeling, and you can't go on until you figure that out. In other words, there's this law or rule of human beings that requires some things for trust, that there should be a certain truth or communication or understanding out in the open. It's the covert narcissist that harbors that grandiose thinking or fantasy, I don't have to. In other words, I get out of, is really the calculation. So they'll surround themselves oftentimes with very strong people who can weather all that, who maybe thrive with that. It's the old pepper and salt, Sonny and Cher. I'm a little bit country, you're a little bit rock and roll. It's one of those, it makes for a lot of drama, good TV, whatever. But, sometimes the cost is too great. It means you not living your dreams, or not actualizing like Abraham Maslow. You're not actualizing something. You've got a song unsung. You've got a drive undriven. You've got a motivation unmotivated. There's all these different pockets of subterfuge that are just like, your inner workings that are gunking it up with a covert narcissist. They'll tell you it's bright out when it's too dark. Just go on. And, here's a flashlight. It might or might not work. But there's sort of a real hurt, a deep hurt that is kind of like handing you a saw that's dull, and it's saying, you got to cut through this big iron fence. I did. Now it's up to your muscle. Go ahead now. They kind of like, their boundaries are very well intact, meaning they're going to make sure they self-actualize. Things are going to happen. Things are going to be their way. They're going to make sure all the cards come together, and then usually the supply, the people who are targeted or abused are those people who are, yes, sir, Skipper, let me work 80 hours. In fact, if I am, and then they're just on this treadmill where they can't get off it to see it. You can't get, you can't get a lever that isn't there. So there is no lever that is yours. You're showing up. You don't got a locker with your name on it. It belongs to them. And then there's this feeling of, you should be so lucky as, or usually there's this, you're part of something bigger, the covert narcissist, you can't, you won't. So it's a really difficult way to see where this invisible burden is sort of shifted. And so you have to declare and say, not my back anymore. Not my not my spinal cord anymore. I'm not throwing myself out of whack, out of balance, and living in that out of balance for the hope or fear of something more or better, when all it is doing is inviting or perpetuating or creating sort of more of this fear. So it's a cognitive dissonance, meaning there is a clashing. Cognitive dissonance in music, it's kind of like that tension chord, and then something else resolves in the music that makes it okay. But a cognitive dissonance means that how it's just something isn't adding up. It is not right. It is off. And yet you're paying the price. Stop. How do you stop? By stopping. How do you stop? By stopping. But then everything's going to fall apart, peace and harmony. I'm just going to keep this going. I'm living on a prayer. We're halfway there. Oh, live, it's that like gusto, whoa, it's like that anthem that you might be sort of, that Mother Teresa, I'm not getting paid, but I'm doing a lot of good things for humanity and other human beings. Cognitive dissonance. It is the state of having inconsistent or basically incongruent thoughts or beliefs, especially as relating to behavioral. What you do, your decisions, and your attitude change. In other words, I believe I'm a good person, and I can support myself and make sure I set myself up for success, but then here comes the sabotage. Something is out of alignment. You mess something up. You blur, you effed it up. You didn't go. Something happened. Oh, here it is again. I'm doing this again. No wonder I'm not in a relationship. No one can handle all these mistakes or all my flub ups or how, whatever, air quotes, that you keep assigning yourself. And then that gives you, this feeling that I will never. And so cognitive dissonance, you'll keep doing something even though you don't want to. So for example, let's just take eating or overeating. Man, I shouldn't eat this ice cream. It is so disgusting. I don't even eat this ice cream. It's so fattening. There's lower, I could have yogurt, but other things, and you just keep doing, or whatever it is, with overeating, overspending, overworking, other things that just aren't working, things that are pockets of your life where you're not able to break the cycle, or you're not living in the open. They're still trying to make you small. They're still trying to get in your window, basically. And where you're dreaming, they're telling you go back. Where you're wanting to communicate, they're saying you don't have a voice. Now is not the time. There's never a good time. The moment isn't right. I have to study. I have to work. I'm not. Or then it's the manipulation. Where they'll only ask you, at work. Or when you're too tired, or when you're starving, or other things that aren't right. In other words, this cognitive dissonance in music, chords that just are clashing, but it might almost sound beautiful because you feel it's going to lead to something better, and then there's this, it was all worth it, and then you pat yourself on the shoulder. But the cognitive dissonance basically means that there's some confusion, and oftentimes you're on an autopilot, but you don't stop. See if you could get the red flags. I shouldn't be doing this. I don't have to. And this, or the other way around, meaning for yourself, I really need to work on and address, but it usually means the relationship cannot be in the way that you feel it should be. Meaning, if you are able to address that it's going to take you away from the relationship, or the relationship is going to end. It means the relationship isn't, in other words, you're breaking the covert narcissist terms and conditions. Meaning, if you're not going to continue to do this for me, then we don't have a relationship. It becomes insubstantiated. It's kind of like you're always lifting over the front of a ship, and you're, just like that Starbucks, the maiden, but you never, it doesn't sort of you don't keep discovering new lands. You don't have that equal exchange. And you find that it's difficult to stop. In other words, I can't stop paying for their bills. I can't stop sacrificing my time. I can't stop doing this. And people keep going, and then they don't realize that they have the power when they do. They don't realize that they can be strong and independent, when they are. And another big one of covert narcissist is they'll keep things hidden. It can happen in marriages. One spouse will have the keys to their whole kingdom, and all of a sudden they divorce the spouse. The spouse, after 30 years, doesn't know how to, use a login, doesn't know how to apply for, an auto loan, doesn't have credit, doesn't know how to work a computer, hasn't worked a day in their life. They've only, in other words, they're at a real disadvantage. And any person, in other words, they take the people who are very controlling. Peace and harmony here means, that's not my wheelhouse, to try to control other people. I'm here to help support, particularly those who are hurt, wounded by being taken advantage of. So it's me who's like, hey, I'm here on the next shore after you got battled and your boat got scuffed up pretty bad and you got a big bad leak going on. Let me take a look at you. I'm there. I'm kind of like that emotional first aid, interim. I'm like hey, let's take a time out. Let's take a sandbar. Let's take a look at this. And so, gosh, I didn't get my water. So the event, though, is that it takes a mental toll. It is going to take a mental something out of you. And then I think part of the covert narcissist is they don't want you to know. They don't want you to have an information. They don't want to do it. They just want to back out. They want to get, they want to get out of things. They want to kind of, chasse out. Oops, I've got something else always scheduled at this time on our birthday, our anniversary, our whatever. You always do it so well. You always do it. So I would mess it up. You wouldn't want me to do it anyhow. There's all this. And then, and then there's this feeling of well, it's too late now. You're in your 70s and you're trying to figure out how to get a utility bill paid. You're in your 50s and this person, is now with someone different, or has, you found that they want to have this separation, and it does not, they had many opportunities to say, hey, kumbaya, come to Jesus, this, that, or the other thing, and then you'd be able to self-actualize as well. It's kind of like, no, you don't have it, no how, no way. And if that's their determination, then that's flawed thinking. If you have your whole gaze sort of completed by them, then you have to look at where you're missing the opportunity for autonomy, independence, and to see why that was obscured and then remained obscured. There might have been substance abuse, whatever abuse. other things that got in the way of impeding clear thinking, perception, and the behavior. Meaning, you know something to be wrong, but you're doing it anyway. Cognitive dissonance, and you have to then look at your beliefs. If you're running on automatic pilot, and then thinking, if I, had done all this, then eventually I would have grown and then been able to have my interests, have my this, have my family, all these different goals. You have to look at these need to be written. It's not that they're unwritten. They need to be written for the first time by you now. It's like kind of like the power of the now and saying no more. Meaning, if you can take and look at it in the privacy of these videos and saying, back up, this, I can't, this is not tolerable. This is, I believe I deserve respect, yet you're in a disrespecting relationship. You need peace in order to focus, and there's violence and slander going on, character assassination. You can't simultaneously prepare for love and then have all these defense mechanisms deployed at you and you're being expected to ignore it. I think that's part of the problem. You're just being expected to never call it out, never say anything. There's no power in one. You'll never get anywhere. No one will believe you. Too many people, no one cares about it. Just suffer, and then you're not then really being held accountable to yourself. So you're always accountable to this other, the narcissist. If someone has a pathological sense of self-importance and a lack of empathy, which means, in the dark, if they're going to take your piece of cake and you're wondering where yours is because they ate the cake. They did the whatever, and you didn't have a chance for yourself to keep your own self out of tow, and in check. And instead, where did I have to go along? And, where can I say, okay, not now, not me. I'm not going along with the fear here. I'm going along with love. I'm done. Now, now never is now. Never again. Been there, done that, don't even know how to go back to that yucky place. Never again. If you want to have a big scrapbook of all sorts of memories that remind you of how disempowered you are, or how much you must live according to the rules or laws of a covert narcissist, you must always take my call. You must always give me, you must always scratch my back. You must always be there for me no matter how I treat you. There's all these certain clauses. And then you're wondering, does everybody else have to deal with this too? And then you get several decades into the relationship and you're realizing that things are toxic. You're then really in a toxic sludge, meaning there's too much of a good or a bad thing going on. Meaning, hey, this is getting too weird for self-actualization or any know-how to take place, which means if they can't partake in some lessons learned together. In other words, the narcissist, they are oftentimes thinking that they, are God's gift to the world or whatever, that they're always right, and it's their attitude, their beliefs that are going to prevail. So if their attitudes and beliefs simultaneously means dwarfing you, making you do all the dirty work, making you do all the making you do all the mundane, the emotional work, holding it together, while they're keep scuffing up your emotional knees, keep stepping on your emotional toes, and you're not getting your needs met, but you don't even know the first thing about what to do now. All you know is you are at a new crossroads or, you are now at the opportunity of letting it all flow, in a way that doesn't disembark you from your journey somehow, which means realize that they're trying to petrify or make, part of that can be really deadening, meaning it's trying to put a boundary on you where there is meant to be freedom, liberation. In other words, you need to articulate and enforce and set a boundary with, meaning how can you live preventatively as well. So knowing, nope, when it gets to this, I am not going to take this treatment, not in my kitchen, not in my oven, not in my backyard, not on my phone, not with my body, not anymore. And you need to be sometimes the first. You need to speak even if your voice shakes. You're the one who needs to go, I need help. I need support. It takes a lot of courage to ask for help. And it takes a lot of also trust to not go and do the wrong thing again and again and again. Most people, if they could have admitted one thing, I wished I knew the red flags beforehand and could have sort of made some steps. Well, maybe, now is the digitally information age. We have a lot of opportunity now to vocalize some things and become more empowered, and experience some new things and go out there and set a new compass, a new route that doesn't require you for you to live in silence or silent suffering anymore, and to live in alignment. So, and then you can ask yourself right now, if I truly wanted to live in better alignment with my life right now, I would. And just write 1 through 20. Stop or start or whatever it is. Just and allow your subconscious to speak to you and don't criticize it. Just sort of knock it out. If I can't think of anything, and just keep writing that. And then, if you get 1 or 2, then you'll begin to kind of break through, crack through, give yourself some reasoning somehow. And you don't have to make something up, meaning, if you might then find yourself kind of going back to a similar habit, but if you say, I've outgrown that pair of shoes, I've outgrown that I thought I was going to have those shoes to the end of time, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you a bad person, the guilt, the shame, that those are feelings that have to be contended with. I'm contending shame, been there, done that. I'm on for doing something new. It's just kind of like shame is like you're a constant kitchen cleaner. I already know how to sweep. It's time for something new. I already know how to do the dishwasher. I already know how to do the laundry. I already, and instead of like, I don't have to practice being better isolated, being more unhappy. To expand for me is to. To expand for me is to. Okay, for me to see the red flags is for me to. For self-respect, for me to have and experience self-respect right now is for me to. And educare, to bring out. We want to bring that out. And then you go, man, I didn't know that I should do this for me, or I could do that for me. And then you find yourself, even if it's one time in a month, you go, you know what? This really is what I'm talking about. This is what life is for. One of those cheers moments. What is that for you? Not what the narcissist was trying to say. Not that what for you, not what is touted or advertised, but for you generally. So with 2 feet on the ground, this is what it means for you. This is what it feels. This is how it looks. This is my new calendar. And if I could clear off the slate, this is how I would do it somehow. And even if it seems too big, that's at least your inner breathing, your inner sequencing, going and allowing for the future that isn't preparing not to bring in future fears. Don't, and that's a lot of it too after the covert, is just to say, I know I'm no longer going to be subject to those future fears where I gutted down. Nope, I'm going to cast my eyes. I'm going to cast my heart. I mean, literally with your heart, what are you going to cast it on that can bring you at least some sort of being? Even if it's the stopping of the sweating, the breathing, the intrusive thinking, where things just keep getting stuck, deter that. Start chewing some gum. That can be a great way to deal with those intrusive thoughts. Or chew some gum. Literally, that mechanism has been found in studies to help with that ruminating thinking, where all of a sudden, or you're feeling in a way, here we go again, and you're just getting roped in, and you're like, I am, should be doing, feeling, and then what is that? Allow yourself just to feel into that moment. And if it doesn't come through right away, it will. Allow and trust in the process. Even if you say, I just want to know what my congruence is. I just want to know what my congruence is. And can I please do it today? Can I please have that little spark of motivation? Can I please have and allow that whatever it is you're wanting things to go, and coming out from that blanket of sorrow, which is oftentimes the after effect, the product of being subject to covert narcissist abuse. It's oftentimes so realize, just for you to come, sometimes it's not what you're doing, it's what you can just stop doing, and sort of and stopping with just doing the routine, changing the routine, going left instead of right, getting a book instead of just being mindful, decluttering or doing something instead of just being sorrowful, being productive. It's very interesting once you start doing that. You focus, then your emotion should be kind of then extinguishing those other negative feelings. In other words, I'm not doing anything, my life isn't going anywhere or something. Then just start cleaning. Get big bags of get huge garbage bags and just start decluttering. Get a bike, start riding. Doing something and getting into a new emotional state will help you get out of that funk. And if you find yourself in the funk too much and you find that you're powerless over it, then you have to ask yourself, what payoff am I getting from staying in this funk? What payoff am I getting from playing too small? What payoff am I getting from this? And then you can say, if it's nothing, then you can then admit to yourself that I'm not going to do that to myself again. I'm not going to eat the whole chocolate cake. I'm not going to burn that really nice piece of meat. I'm going to cook it correctly. I'm not going to scratch up my phone. I'm going to take better care of it. And these different things. And then what does that mean for you? Do you go and you get a box of towelettes that can clean off your phone? Do you go get some better cleaning equipment that isn't all, harmful or toxic? What can you bring into your environment that's more incongruent with your beliefs and your attitudes? Meaning, and getting to know what that is. Because oftentimes with a covert narcissist, sometimes people only know the abused. They only know being a victim. They only know being an underdog. They only know being the small fry, the small potato, little you little dum-dum, whatever, maybe even nicknames. Give yourself a new nickname. Give yourself a new belief. What is your belief? What is your attitude? If you don't know what it is, then you better try one on for size and see what, what are you all about. If you don't know, don't worry about it. That's what this life is for, discovering. But if you definitely say, I don't want to just say, man, I was a great job being a victim. I was a great job being used. I was a great job at failed, And so what, if you, once you're aware of this, and sometimes you don't know what to do, but that's through the spectrum. If you don't know what to do, you will, and then you just say, you know what, I will know what to do in the future. Maybe tomorrow, but that will come. That lesson, that answer, that distinguish, that, that will come. And if you have that, then you begin to develop true confidence that comes from within, that no one can take away from you. Just like, if you're a largely, and we're going to wrap this up here, just like if you're a largely overweight person and you said, not me, I'm no longer wearing 56 size pants. I am so sick. I can't even find a belt. I just have to wear an Afghan rug, and I walk around and that's my size. And then you go and then you lose 150 pounds and you lost it. What kind of confidence would that give you, knowing that do you see what I'm saying? If you can do this, then that is where we want to get, where it's like, you know what? I have worked on this, and this is something that no one can take away from me. See, the narcissist, oh, I paid for this. This is mine. If you're my friend, then you're in my house. It's not a place for you to visit. It's not even your experience. You're a visitor in my house. It's kind of like there's a feeling that they kind of own you. That's very unpleasant. That is really dysfunctional. Your life is going to be down and in the shop more than you care to admit or care to want to be, especially with the pandemic and the reset. Oh boy, if you're living with a narcissist or a psychopath, boy, that's all I'm going to say. Once you're aware and you say, you know what, no, and then you throw away all your size 56 pants and you can't go outside, and you know what, and you get power over yourself, and you're like, well, then I guess I'm not going outside until I get to be a size 50 waist. And then you get this sort of determination. And it doesn't have to be the same way that the narcissist makes their goals. It doesn't have to be the same goals. See, you don't, if you're a different kind of person and they didn't allow to get you to know you, then that's going to be their problem. Don't make it yours. Don't make other people's problems yours. Don't make your life also all about their problem. If you do, then you must say, well, that's me. I'm going to make my life all about other people's problems, and that's what I get. You've got to breathe a little bit more consciousness into it. And if you don't know it, don't worry about it. That will come but you can at least say, I at least know that I don't want yelling. I at least know that I don't want screaming. I at least know that I don't want poverty. I at least know that I want this feeling. And you can at least get a little bit out and see what it is. And if your goals aren't all big, audacious, grandiose, as the narcissist, and you feel bad because you don't have these big goals and they're not as big, oh, I just did, and you feel, oh, well, I'm going to have to get this new car in the next 6 months because, do you see what I'm saying? Don't feel diminished. Just like Munish, chords can diminish. Ooh, they all kind of resolve themselves. I played a little bit of piano. But, realize that it's okay for you to live on what you might consider a diminished chord, or, a life less traveled, or whatever it is, but it's yours. Jewel, my hands are small, but they are my own, and they are never broken. Come on, people. All sorts of other people are with you and are going through, what is it, Madonna? I'm keeping my baby. I mean, come on. If that isn't someone trying to empower themselves, if Madonna can talk to her father, Papa, don't swear, I'm keeping my baby. That's kind of like what this is like. You're keeping your baby. Guess what? I'm gonna keep me with all its, this, that, and the other thing. And even if even your whole whatever, if you feel was, when people are abused, you just feel that your whole being is not only jeopardized, but sort of not only disguised, but substituted, and that yours is, whatever. Get back to you. It's okay. Don't give you and then try to put you and shame. Try to reduce the sound volume and just say, no, thank you very much. And know what actions, behaviors, or what have you brings about those shame, or, and then get and say that this is okay. This is enough. This is just this. Even just working on my emotions, this is where I'm supposed to be. Me just doing this is okay. And even if it isn't impressive enough, big enough, worthy enough of being acknowledged and validated by the narcissist, the authority, the end all be all, maybe between you and God, whisper, this is enough. Is it? And then, be able to have that inner rapport that is able to have its own little voice, even if the voice squeaks, is soft, even if you're a man, it is okay. That is okay. And then realize that, and just realize and allow that as a new B state, and just begin to observe where some newfound strength, energy, and depth and joy can come from, even though it might have not have been acknowledged, validated, or approved, narcissist approved. That's okay. It's approved. It's approved. It's maiden voyage approved. You got this. Have a beautiful day.